Let's unpack the day's movements now with Wayne McCurrie from FNB Wealth and Investments. Wayne, thank you for joining us. Let's first look at the rand. How did it react on the US Federal Reserve's announcement of a further 25 basis point hike?
Well, look, as we know, the rand got very weak a couple of months ago and it's been strengthening since then. But certainly on that announcement, the rand did actually strengthen and went below 17.50 earlier on today. And it's weakened a little bit since then. And surprisingly enough, it took the rate hike decision very well, simply because clearly the market thinks that this is the end of interest rate hikes, as David Shapiro said earlier on, and that the next move really is down when interest rates, when inflation starts to fall, maybe even before the end of the year. But certainly the federal chairman made very strong hints that interest rates will come down next year.
But could this mean that we can also expect a hike at the next Reserve Bank meeting?
No, I think we are finished with ours. When you look at our inflation numbers, I mean, the CPI number that came out a while back was also lower than expected. And equally as important, today's producer price inflation came in significantly lower than expected. It was 7.3% last month. It came in at 4.8. I mean, that's a huge drop. The market was expecting 6%. So luckily enough, I think we've also seen the end of our interest rate hiking cycle. And the next thing we'll see is interest rates being cut, hopefully before the end of the year.
Wayne, we saw yesterday an end of the Steinhoff era. Is Tongaat going down the same route?
It's a very good question, that actually, because Tongaat really is selling off its sugar asset. It's still got all the property assets and other assets. Maybe they'll get enough equity in, but it could very easily go the Steinhoff route, to be honest.
And then the mining giant Anglo American has cut its interim dividend by more than half after reporting a plunge in net profit following weaker prices and greater input costs. Could we see this from other mining companies as well?
Yes. We are in a mining down cycle. Earnings a year ago were at absolute record highs. Mining companies a year ago had never made so much profits and so much cash flow and had such strong balance sheets. So this is a cycle. We're in the down cycle now. So all mining companies will report a similar trend, earnings falling by 50, 60, 70%. But hopefully enough, when interest rates are cut, as I spoke about earlier on, the commodity cycle will recover. And commodity shares actually look quite good value at these levels, despite the fact that earnings are collapsing. The market was actually quite efficient in pricing these shares because it knocked the shares down before the earnings collapsed. So the market clearly was anticipating this.
So ArcelorMittal also announced a loss of nearly 450 million rand in their latest interim results. What do you make of this?
Look, ArcelorMittal is in a very difficult position. They're actually too small to truly compete against the global steel manufacturers. So a couple of times they'll have fantastic results and then everything collapses. They're in a very, very difficult position. I mean, the share price rallied very strongly not that long ago, but it's given it all back. And as you say, it's made a 450 million rand loss now. And I'm not positive about the outlooks for the company. They are just simply too small a player to actually have economies of scale in comparison to the big global steel producers.
In other business news, Spur, the Spur Group, is buying a 60% stake in the restaurant group Doppio Zero. The deal price was, however, not disclosed, and they say they want to branch out to areas where they're underrepresented. This shows that there's still markets and alive in the restaurant industry.
Yes, very much so. I mean, I'm very happy about this because I like going to Spur for the hamburger and the onion rings. Now I can go to Doppio Zero, part of Spur, and have breakfast there because Doppio serve a fantastic breakfast. So I think this is good for Spur. You know, it is probably going a little bit more upmarket than their mainstream brands. And I think it's quite positive. I mean, they didn't disclose the price, but they said it was below the threshold disclosure value. So it's relatively small. But Doppio's isn't that small. I mean, it's got 600 million turnover, and there's many branches. So I think this is good for Spur.
And then lastly, Wayne, producer inflation has dipped once again. Is it looking more and more possible that inflation on a consumer level could drop further?
Yes, as I spoke about early on, it came down very, very quickly, our PPI number. And we are going to see this in CPI. I'm still in consumer prices. I'm still of the view that exactly the same as inflation surprised going up, I think it's going to surprise everyone coming down as to how quickly it's going to fall, simply because you're measuring off a far higher base level a year ago. So, once again, I think we'll see rate cuts before the end of the year, hopefully on the back of significantly lower inflation.
I think we all hope so. Thank you so much for your time, Wayne. That was Wayne McCurrie from FNB Wealth and Investments.